Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cinema Flow podcast. I'm your host, Zach Abdulbaki, and today I'm joined by a very special guest, Mr. Jay Chandrasekhar. He is the director, co-writer, and star of the new film Super Troopers 3. The film follows Farva's wildly over-the-top Indian engagement to Thorny's sister, which spirals into chaos. The Super Troopers must navigate Thorny's schemes to break up the relationship while trying to crack a pernicious new drug ring, all to save the day and maybe the wedding itself. Super Troopers 3 will be released in movie theaters everywhere on Friday, August 7th. It's a hilarious movie. I highly recommend that you all check it out. Now, please welcome to the show the director and star of Super Troopers 3, Mr. Jay Chandrasekhar. Hello, sir. How you doing today?
Hello, how are you? Good to see you.
Of course, I'm doing well. Thank you for taking the time to chat. I'm a big fan of the previous movies, and I'm so glad that you're bringing back the R-rated comedy to the cinema. Can you tell me where the idea for Super Troopers 3 came from and how you got started with the writing process?
Well, we were trying to figure out like what would be a good sort of original take on a new Super Troopers. And so Kevin Heffernan, who played Farva, said, what would it imagine a scenario where the worst guy in the office is dating your sister? That was the beginning of it. And we are like, oh yeah, okay. And then we kind of moved that to marrying your sister. And then we sort of focused in on my character, Thorny, who really likes Farva the least, probably. And we'll say, okay, we'll make it Thorny's sister, and it'll be a wedding, and then we thought, okay, so my role will be to try to stop the wedding, and we'll do something like it's basically Meet the Parents meet Super Troopers. That's kind of the concept.
Of course, I love it. And I heard that you and the Broken Lizard gang each wrote 30 or like 20 pages of the first draft and then put it together. Is that true? And if so, how do you decide who gets what section to write?
Well, we do a what is, something like a 20-page outline, and it's got, numbered scenes basically for the whole thing all the way to the end. And I just cut it up into five relatively equal parts, and then that's the section. Your section is sometimes, if you can get the first section, it's the best, and it gets progressively harder from there because you're like, if you have the last section, you're like, I don't even know how to do that because there's an action scene and you don't really know who the bad guys are, but we have a sense of it. And so that first draft is the Frankenstein draft. You put it all together, and you're really looking for maybe a good joke here and there. You're looking for tone. You're looking for, is the plot of the bad guys, how's that looking? And then you rewrite that section after we do a, 4-day meeting on that Frankenstein draft. And then you rewrite that section again when we have another meeting. And eventually one person will become the point person on the whole movie, and they'll take that draft and grind it into like sort of one voice. So all the bad guys will have the same names, and all the tone will start to get a little more fluid. And then by even that fourth draft is still not very good. I mean, they're not very good at all, in fact, in the beginning. But by the time you get to about five or six, they're starting to take shape into what will eventually become Draft 32.
Yeah, I remember I took Judd Apatow's masterclass online, and he's always referred to the first draft as the vomit draft. Just get it
Yeah.
all out and then clean it up. And it's fun for you probably because you're working with your friends after all these years.
And
Yeah.
Judd does it a little different way. He gets that draft out, and then I think he does probably fewer drafts of the script from a written perspective, and because what he does is he hires funny, great actors who he wants to improvise on top of the script he's got. And then he'll sometimes go back and reshoot things that he's already shot because somebody's improvised something that he loves. And then that'll be the angle of the movie a little bit, and he'll kind of go in that direction. It's a much bigger improv job than what we do, which is we write these jokes, and then once the slot where the joke goes, I say, okay, you can improvise that joke, another joke to fit that joke. But we're not improvising plot lines in the same way that Judd likes to.
Yeah, and I feel like in this movie especially, every character has an arc. Like even Mac with the electric car was one of my favorite gags. And I love that we get to see Thorny's family and see a bit of Indian culture. And I really loved the dance sequences. They have like a Bollywood style to them with the music and the choreography. I'm curious, what was it like directing those scenes? And are there any Bollywood movies that you looked to for inspiration?
Interestingly, I'm not a huge dancer or even like an expert on dancing, but we've worked with this choreographer named Mark Swanhart for almost 20 years. He does a lot of the Vegas shows like Celine Dion and Dancing with the Stars, and he's done Cirque du Soleil. And in fact, we met him in Montreal when he choreographed a stage number with some of his Cirque du Soleil dancers and Broken Lizard we did at the Montreal Comedy Festival. And every time we need a dance, I call him and he comes in and just sort of takes over the set. And I ask him to. I'm like, just you do it. And so he rehearsed with the actors and he would just send me video of what they did. And I'm like, I love this. Maybe this thing's a little broad. Maybe the actual plot line has to have these two kind of a little more connected, and whatever. I would just make tiny notes, and then on the day of, I'd say, "Look, it's effectively your set. You tell me where you want the cameras, and when you say you're done, well, that's when we're done." And so I kind of just turn it over for that thing because me trying to suddenly become, Fosse or one of these choreographed guys, it's just not realistic. So I just sort of get out of the way.
Yeah, that's good to like let them do their thing, but the way you shoot it looks really nice on screen.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I love the production design in this movie. And one thing I noticed is that there's a Jackass hat in Thorny's house next to the record player. Did you put that there as an Easter egg? Because you were in one of my favorite Jackass bits of all time.
I did. I'm good buddies with Johnny Knoxville and Jeff Tremaine, and a little bit with Spike Jones. They sent me, well, originally the guy who delivers the condoms was potentially going to wear a hat, and it was going to be a Jackass hat. So I called those guys, and they sent me those hats, and I was like, and then I decided not to have him wear the hat because he was going to wear a Colgate shirt, which I wanted more to feature more. And so I just put the hat there and said, whoever sees it, sees it. I'm glad you saw it.
Yeah, and I feel like this year, the R-rated comedies are coming back with Jackass and then also this and like Scary Movie 6. So love that.
Yeah.
And I really love the action in these movies. You have the chase with Baker and the explosion with the Mini Cooper. I'm curious, how do you come up with all the beats for an action scene? And what's it like working with your stunt team to actually execute it?
Well, the guy who was the stunt coordinator, he's the second unit director as well. Is a guy named Robert Alonzo, who is one of the top, if not the top guy in stunts. And he's an artist. He's like, it's similar to the choreographer, right? It's like he has we basically discuss, I'm like, I need it to start in this scene and I need it to end with a jump and I need it in the middle, I need them to sort of catch up and sort of, elude. And he goes, "How long do you want it?" I'm like, "I think I want it to be about 4 minutes, but as short as two, could be 2 to 4." And he goes, "Okay, how many days do I have to shoot it?" And you're like, "Okay, well, I think we can give you 3 days." I mean, it's literally like, okay, you have 3 days to shoot this thing, and you get this many other cars, and to do all these things. And so you kind of go, I need these things to happen, and you can do whatever you want in between. Because I worked on a film I directed The Dukes of Hazzard, and it was a similar scenario. I was like, I need it to start here, end here. We have these various jokes that are going to happen in the middle, so the cars need to get close, however you want to do it. And so we do it that way. And if you really unleash some of these people creatively, they give you incredible work. Like they shot effectively the entire fight scene in the bachelor party. There's a fight over a lobster. And he's like, and it's just listed as there's a fight. And he goes, "Okay, here's what I think we should do." And he shows it to me with his stunt guys playing us. And I'm like, "Okay, I like this. This feels a little too broad. Can we connect these two guys? These two guys have a plot together." And ultimately he comes up with whatever I need within the parameters of how long he has to shoot it. And then it's the same thing. When we're shooting these scenes, I'm like, you tell me where you think the best camera position for this punch is. And I find that, the way second unit people often are is they're shooting defensively because they're worried about the director and, oh, they're trying to please. And the reality is, in my opinion, having done this enough, it's like get somebody whose work you think is great, give them exactly the plot points, and let them do their thing. That's all I do now.
Yeah, especially like in that lobster scene, it's so cool from a stunt perspective and from a camera's perspective. But I think for you, it's like adjusting the it to the comedy effect, like making sure
Yeah,
you get the laughs.
it's
Yeah.
gotta it's gotta fit the movie, right? The
Mhm.
tone of the movie is the most important thing going. That and the rhythm. And so sometimes a stunt can feel too dark, too violent, too dangerous, or the camera might be too shaky, whatever it is. And you're like, that doesn't fit this movie. So I've got to be in charge of the whole grand scheme of things, the big picture, the tone, and the rhythm. And so I'm constantly talking about rhythm. I'm like, things have to happen at this pace, at this exact pace. And so you're
Yeah.
trying to get everybody on your rhythm. You're basically a band leader, and you go, everybody get, we're playing on this time. Everyone understand the time we're playing? Okay, this is the time. Anything you give me needs to be on this time. And people go, okay, we got it. We got it. We're doing this rhythm. They don't all know what I'm talking about all the time, but I show them from the other movies. I'm like, you see how this plays? It's like punchline, punchline. It's that. It's drum beat.
Exactly. And it's consistency and pacing. And I feel like the pacing was also dependent on the editing, because that's where the whole movie comes together. I'm curious, when you're editing, do you watch all the footage and decide which takes to use, or do you leave that up to the editor?
Well, what I try to do is I say, hey, cut the movie however you want to. Don't even worry about me. And let's see what comes out of that. And what happens is I have an editor who I've worked with a couple times now, and he cuts my rhythm the way he knows I like it. But even that is slower than I like it. And so occasionally he'll come up with ways to cut scenes that I'm like, huh, I never thought of that. It never occurred to me that we should do it that way because I already have the map in my head because I've did the shot list and I can just put this thing into shot order and it's gonna work in because I already know what I've shot. He doesn't know the map. He's like, I think he wants this and he might want this shot and I love this shot. And he puts it together his own way. And I'm like, oh, that's a great, interesting way to put that together. Sometimes I'll go, okay, well, we're going to attack the scene from that perspective. But eventually, after I give him a round of notes on the first cut, I take each scene, I recut it myself on an Avid, and I watch every single part of the footage that's ever going to go in the movie and just those sections. And then I put the right one in that I like, and then I send it back to him and I time it the way I want it timed, and I send it back to him. And then he cuts the movie from there.
And no, it's always very well paced, all three movies. And also, one thing I'm curious about is the for the mustaches. How do you maintain a good mustache? Do you have a special cream or conditioner that you use to make it look the way it does?
I mean, I shampoo it and I condition the mustache, but it's really whatever they have at the hotel.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
Um,
you just need time, right? You need like a proper mustache for me is at least 4 weeks. That's the ideal scenario for a mustache. This thing's like 3 weeks. It's pretty good. Fine.
Also, you have a lot of great stories in your book, Mustache Shenanigans, about the making of the first Super Troopers. I'm curious, what can young directors learn from your journey about the entrepreneurial, independent spirit that you had? Because you took matters into your own hands and created work for yourself. You didn't just wait for someone to give you a job.
Yeah, the days of, where Spielberg was kind of given a choice of movies to make, sort of, where he was like, you could do this one or you could do that one or you could do that one. Like those days are not that model is not really the model for people who are trying to make it because nobody wants to give a newcomer a movie to make because the stakes are so high. The financing it's just so expensive that why would I give it to a kid who doesn't know how to do it yet? That guy has to prove it by doing it, or that woman on her own. And that's hard to do because you're like, where am I going to get all that money? But yeah, now, I mean, these cameras are now quite sophisticated. I mean, the camera that in my pocket is pretty sophisticated, and you can, you can shoot things with these cameras, and you can get them out onto the internet. The key thing that you guys have that we didn't, was you're all connected. And, like my kids are connected to their childhood buddies still, and they're 20, and they go visit each other. And like once we left grade school, they were like, oh, I don't know, I haven't seen that guy in years. I have no idea what his phone number. I don't even know, and you were just not connected in that same way. But you guys can create these fan bases that with followings. And I'll tell you something, we really give a shit about those in Hollywood. We're like, how many followers does this new guy have? Whoa, 1 million? Wow. And it matters. Like, so you can make stuff, particularly comedy. If you can do that, you can really get noticed by your peers first. And then when we see the numbers you got, we're like, okay, I can see this person knows how to shoot and edit and obviously get a following. I might give them a chance to do a big one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think now we're seeing horror movies are doing really well with the younger audiences. I hope that comedy is like gonna get to that same place as well. Because it is in TV, but with movies, I feel like now there's more momentum, but for the
Yeah.
COVID times there it was a little gone.
Yeah, and it's a shame because like all we did is we just when Landis and Reitman were kind of done, me and Todd Phillips and Apatow, we came in and we just sort of took over. And there's nobody right behind us though, not really, and there should be. It would be great if there were like. Now there are other people like but even David Gordon Green, who's sort of more my contemporary, and Danny McBride, a little younger, but I mean similar. Like there's nobody behind them really that I can see.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, hopefully that's going to happen very soon. And
Yeah,
you mentioned Apatow. One of my favorite shows ever is Undeclared, which you directed
yeah.
3 episodes of that. I had the DVD box set growing up. I'm curious if you have any fun memories or stories from working on that show.
Well, what happened was I directed a film called Puddle Cruiser, which is my first film. Then NBC bought the television rights for that. So we wrote and then we decided not to star in a half-hour adaptation of a college television show called Safety School. NBC was like, they were like, wow, this is, and all the young people at NBC loved it. I met with the president of NBC when I was 26, and he goes, what am I going to do? Turn a $50 million budget over to you? Have you ever made a television show? I'm like, nah, but how hard could it be? And he decided not to do it. So they didn't pick up the pilot. Apatow ends up seeing the pilot and he calls me up, never met him. I go to visit him on the set of a television show that didn't really go anywhere called North Hollywood. And I met him and he goes, I saw this thing you did called Safety School. And he goes, phenomenal. I loved it. He goes, and they didn't pick it up. Fucking idiots. And it's just sitting there now. He goes, so I remade it and it's called Undeclared and it's on TV. He goes, do you want to direct episodes of it? I said, sure, bro. So I did. I directed, I think 4, but maybe 3 episodes of that. And I met Seth Rogen and Jay Baruchel and Tim Sharp and Charlie Hunnam. And they were, Seth was 17 and those guys were just dicking around and having fun, and I was 26, so I'm like the adult and I'm like, hey, you little fuckers, let's go. And I'd get them all riled up and get them going, and they did great work. And it was fun. It was fun and funny, and then that show, whatever, I think we did 2 seasons of it, or
Yeah.
1, I don't even know, but it was a good show.
Yeah, Hell Week is one of my favorite episodes. Yeah, and obviously you did great, so many great shows like New Girl and Arrested Development, but I feel like that one's underrated. Like it should have had, I think it only had 1 season. It should have had more.
Oh, 1 season. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's on DVD, and it's on streaming now too, so
Yeah.
people can
Okay.
watch it. Bringing it back to Super Troopers 3, I love the new cast members in this movie. We have Hannah Simone from New Girl playing your sister, along with Iqbal Thiba and Shakina Jaffrey as your parents. I'm curious, did you take inspiration from your real life family for these characters? And if so, did that play a role in who you decided to cast?
Well, Hannah Simone, I worked with her maybe 6, 7 times on New Girl, and I knew she knew how to do this rhythm that's that we needed, which is super fast, no, very little pausing, proper delivery of punchlines. So I called her and I texted her. I said, "Do you want to play my sister?" She goes, "Absolutely." I didn't tell her she was gonna have to date Farva, but she said yes. And then Sakina, I'm just a fan of her as an actor. Her mother is actually a famous Indian chef. Mother Jaffrey is her name. So she's kind of a little bit like, Indian royalty, a little bit like acting royalty. Her dad was in Gandhi. And then Iqbal was on Glee. Look, he was also in the show Deli Boys, which I have some buddies on, Horna Jagannathan and Asif Ali, who I made a film with. And so, I watched Iqbal's stuff and I could see that he knew his way around a joke. And he also looked stern. He could play stern really well, which is sort of you need that character in this movie. You need somebody who might reject Farva if he crosses him the wrong way. So there was another funny guy who could have been the dad, but this guy had the right stern quality to him. And then Sakina, look, I asked her, "Do you think you could play my mother?" And she's such a huge Broken Lizard fan. She happened to have a gray wig and she put it on, and I'm like, that's fabulous. So, I mean, those guys are all funny. And, the thing about Indian actors is, for the most part, they don't get to play the funny parts. They have to play like the recent immigrant who comes to America and someone might say something racist to them or whatever, and then they're sad. Like that's, like I don't really do that. So I just was like, they were all very happy to get to be in on the jokes. They were like, we're funny too. I'm like, yeah, I know. That's what we've written this for. So, and Sakina's fantastic. She was just like, I never have gotten to be funny in anything. And she just loved it. Iqbal was like, I can't believe I get to be in the three-way with these two hot babes. He goes, this is incredible. He goes, this is it.
That's the American dream.
Yeah, they're like, wow, the Indian gets to do that.
Yeah, and it's actually what you said is very relatable because I'm Arab and it's the same thing. Like a lot of the actors, like Arab actors, they just, they get to play a hijabi who gets, like experiences
Yeah.
racism or something. Whereas I always found you inspirational because you make the fun R-rated comedies that's like, everyone can watch and enjoy. So
Nobody else calls me this, but I call myself the Indian Jackie Robinson of comedy. Because
hell yeah.
I'm the first. There
Yes.
was Ben Kingsley who didn't, he played Gandhi obviously, but
Yeah.
when they needed an Indian in a comedy, they would just put a white guy in brownface. And by the way, I think Peter Sellers did a great job in The Party. I think he did a great job, and Fisher Stevens was not bad in Short Circuit too. But luckily, I was able to change that.
Absolutely. Yeah, we need more Indians and Arabs and all minorities making comedies, I think.
Well, the way to get the right parts is to make the movies yourself.
Exactly. That goes back to the entrepreneurial spirit that you had,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
I think, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that also maybe comes from being a child of immigrants because I know for my parents, they're very like business oriented. So they kind of instilled that in me too.
Yeah, like you have to be the hardest working person in the room.
Absolutely.
That's just how you will not be handed this job. You
Yeah.
have to go take it.
Yes, definitely. What was it like filming in Massachusetts, and what was your favorite day of shooting the movie?
Massachusetts was great because we'd shot number 2 there. So we kind of settled right back into that old station we were in before. We just rebuilt it. And it's just very comfortable to already know it. The favorite day of shooting was that lobster fight that I mentioned before. It was like you could see it coming together in shot by shot, and you were like, oh. And like I shot list the entire film, but on that one bit, I kind of go, okay, to the stunt guys, I'm like, tell me, where should this camera be, higher? Should it be lower? Like we're trying to capture these fights and these punches, and you're like, it's a little more like I'm riding along almost on that, like because I've taken this approach of show me what you got to the stunt guys, which they love. They love.
Yeah, it's one of the best sequences in the whole trilogy. Also, what is your favorite quote from the whole trilogy now? Mine is happiness in your household.
It's funny. I was nervous about that one. That's a good one. I think my favorite line in the trilogy is It's actually in this new movie. Farva is talking about he gives the mother a VHS tape of the film Gandhi, which he claims to have seen because he's trying to ingratiate himself to these Indian parents. And after we've done talking about Gandhi and he claims there's going to be a sequel, Gandhi 2, Electric Vindaloo, he looks around, he goes, "Speaking of Gandhi, I'm starving." And I'm like, "Oh, damn, that's so Rodney Dangerfield." It's my favorite line in the movie. And of all three movies, I think it's just special.
Speaking of Gandhi, I'm starving.
That's awesome. Yeah, that one made me laugh. You also have a comedy special coming up called Jay Chandrasekhar, Brown Supremacist, which will premiere on Veeps August 20th. I'm curious, what are some of your favorite venues or theaters to perform stand-up in?
I did this concert at Thalia Hall in Chicago, which is where I'm from, and it was wonderful. It was nice. Chicago's always so supportive for me, and I'm a lover of Chicago. My favorite clubs there are three of them. One is called Comedy on State in Madison, Wisconsin. It's got a very low ceiling, and it's a classy club owned by some classy people. And then there's another one called Comedy Works. There are two of them in Denver. And the same, it's got low ceiling. And what happens with the low ceiling is the laughter bounces off of it and back into the audience. And it just creates like an energy that is superior to places with high ceilings.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm excited to check out the special. And do you know what your next movie will be? I'm sure you and the Broken Lizard guys have a bunch of ideas in development.
Yeah, I mean, we have a number of things that we would have to start rewriting on or write from beginning. I think we kind of owe the audience a sequel to Beer Fest. There's an original movie where we're the America's Cup team blown off course. There's a movie where we play professors at a snooty school. So those are the Broken Lizard movies. I mean, we might do an animated show, a television show, like a Super Troopers animated show, possibly. And then I'm planning on trying to make a Scottish golf trip movie, which has got elements of The Hangover in it.
That'd be awesome. I'd love that. Sir, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me. It was truly an honor to have you on the show. Before we go, please let the audience know where they can follow you on social media so they can keep up to date with everything you have going on.
I am at Jay Chandrasekhar. That's on Instagram.
Perfect. Perfect. There'll be a link to your Instagram in the description. And to everyone listening, be sure to check out Super Troopers 3 in movie theaters on August 7th. Take your buddies. It's a big R-rated comedy. You'll have a great time. And that does it for today's episode of the Cinema Flow podcast. Thank you all for listening. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.